was out at the when I was out at the International Assembly in San Diego. She was one of the featured speakers, and pretty much blew me away. And she can probably take up the whole time just telling you about her experience with the Rotary Club and why she started her own. But I'll leave that for another time. But she currently serves the membership chair in District 6690. She's a member of the Paul Harris Society and the Bequest Society, so she puts her money where her mouth is. She's a charter member of the Rotary Club of Athens Sunrise that she helped start. Her favorite Rotary activities are RILA and Paddle for Polio Plus, which is an annual event featuring kayaking, which we have a river right here, Rocky. Maybe we need to think about doing that. She developed and is leading a large-scale service event called The Big Project, which benefits her hometown by bringing together, listen to this, more than a dozen Rotary clubs, Kiwanis, Lions, and Civitan clubs, which she describes as her dream project. And that's pretty darn good when you reach out to the community and grab everybody. She is the executive director of the Athens CASA GAL program. And if you're not familiar with that, it's a court-based agency that recruits and trains volunteers to serve as court-appointed special advocates who represent the best interests of children involved in juvenile court because of abuse or neglect. So it's a very worthwhile program. She's a regional coordinator of the Southeast Ohio CASA. She's a licensed social worker, trauma specialist, and a trained forensic interviewer. She has devoted a career to serving foster children. This work is near and dear to her heart, and she was adopted from the Ohio child welfare system as a child and grew up in a working foster home. So she and her husband, also a Rotarian, continue that tradition, building their family through adoption. Now, we all talk about Rotarians that just don't have time to do things. I want you to listen to this because she's already been pretty busy. She was recently recognized in her community as the region as the Young Professional of the Year, Community Leader of the Year, Ohio University's 5 Under 35 featuring alumni. She serves as the chair of the federally mandated Child Welfare Review Panel on Permanency and was elected to the National Leadership Council for CASA. In addition to Rotary, she volunteers her time, I don't know how much time she has, with the Make-A-Wish Foundation and the Child Conservation League. And she describes herself simply as a mother, wife, friend, social worker, Rotarian, and troublemaking millennial. And I don't know if you have any time to make trouble, Jenny, but thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your knowledge with us. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Yeah, woohoo, Rotary. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for welcoming me. And it's good that we actually have a little bit more of an intimate group because it means that y'all can do more of the work than me. So I always like one of those presentations where I can employ those who think that they're just going to tune in and kind of sit back and chill. But what you're going to do is work a little bit. So we're going to use the chat box a little bit, and I'm sure you all are probably Zoom experts by now because we have been living in the Zoomverse for well over a year now. But we're going to use the chat box a bit, and I'm going to just ask you a few questions, and I want you to just answer using that chat. So the first is super simple. You did not need to study for this test, but why are you a member of Rotary? Now, I know that there is a district governor and a past district governor and lots of fancy people on this call. We're not trying to impress them. Real quick, why are you a member of Rotary? And this is like quick, right? You don't need to inspire anybody with this. Why are you a member? Meaning to my life, service, relationships, helping others. Absolutely. Awesome. Anyone else? Just got a couple in there. Who else? Why are you a member of Rotary? And I say member of Rotary because I never know if people are a member of a Rotary Club or a Rotaract Club. So I say member of Rotary to make sure I'm including everyone. So I asked this question, I haven't kept track of in the past over the pandemic, how many Zoom presentations I was a part of. But I did keep a track of how many countries I have talked to. And I have talked to Rotary clubs and Rotary districts and MDIOs. And I just crossed off 34 countries that I've talked to. And I always start with this question, or almost always start with this question. And it's always service and people, right? People join and people stay in Rotary because of the good they can do and the people that they meet and do it alongside. And that's universal. And also, how dang cool is that we get to be a part of an organization of over 1 million people, right? Probably even more than that if we had a way to really capture how big Rotaract is. And you think about youth exchange and group study exchange and fellowships, how big really our community is, even beyond our membership. But the fact that we all care about kind of the same thing, and that's really cool. So I've already said why you're a member of Rotary, and kind of think about it. And it's also helpful if you have a piece of scrap paper nearby or something, because we're going to do a little bit of work here in the next half hour or so. But the next thing I want you to do, if you're able to, is to stand up or just kind of sit up tall in your chair. And I just want you to reach your hands up as far as you can, like reach as high as you can. All right, cool. And you're all doing it. Give me a nod if you're like you're legitimately trying, you're reaching as high as you can. Okay, like I trust you, you're Rotarians, you wouldn't lie to me. So you're reaching as high as you can. Now, what if I said, can you reach just a little bit higher? Like just like a nano inch higher, like a millimeter higher. Could you do it? Like if you really had to like reach just a little higher. All right, cool. So you could all do that, right? Nod your head if you could do that. You could reach you got a little bit higher. So what you did was stretch, and stretching is important when we're talking about growing Rotary and engaging in Rotary. Now, next, I want you to use the chat box. And if you could name one person that you know, and it could be their name, or it could be kind of how you know them, like maybe they're your dentist or your mail carrier, one person that you have not talked to about Rotary. You could just kind of name them there in the chat box. So a neighbor, thank you, Spencer. Mailman. New neighbor, yep, you had new neighbor moved in, you haven't had a chance to talk to them about Rotary. Cool. All right, friends, yep, you can think of friends that you haven't talked to about Rotary. Absolutely. I always say my dentist. I've never talked to my dentist about Rotary, but it's usually because my mouth is busy when I'm at the dentist. So, you know, I don't have the chance to, there aren't too many people I haven't talked to about Rotary, but all right. So also I will attempt, thank you for laughing, whoever laughed at that joke. That's another thing. I just assume when I am doing a Zoom presentation that we have this social contract that you will laugh at all my jokes. And honestly, it just makes me feel better. Like it'll keep me up at night if nobody laughs at my jokes. So if you could just, and if you're muted, you have to like make it so I can see your laughter. Like you have to physically laugh and let me see it. So
everybody,
if we can just agree that y'all are going to laugh at my jokes, that'd be great. So if you have a piece of scrap paper, if you want to play along and kind of nerd out with me, and it could be a Post-it note, it could be whatever. I like look around what I have. I got a Rotary woohoo sign. I have this random little arch clump, like, you know, coin that someone gave me. I was like, I could write on that if I needed to. So whatever it is that you have, if you could just kind of divide it into 3 sections. And I want you to title one section, Think. Title the next section, Stretch. And the final section, Plan. Now, if you're thinking, oh gosh, Jenny, how are we going to think and stretch and plan over the span of the next 15 minutes? Friends, you just proved to me that you can think and you can stretch and you can plan. I said, why are you a member of Rotary? You thought about it and could answer it. You all proved that you can think. Congratulations. I asked you to stretch. I said, reach high. You said you were reaching high. And then I said, well, can you reach a little bit higher? And you all did that. So you all proved that you can stretch. And finally, planning. I said, name one person that you haven't talked to about Rotary. Within seconds, you all thought of it. So that's the beginnings of the plan of how we're going to tackle this. So first, let's think. Now, think about your Rotary story and think about what Rotary means to you, because it's so much bigger than the why, right? The why are you a member? If you really unpack that, it's a little bit more than that, because if you say service, if I were going to push on you and ask you to unpack that a little bit, I might say, why does service even matter to you? Why do you care about service? Why is that important, right? There's no humankind rule that says you have to serve others. So why is that important to you? And I'm going to share with you a little bit about my path to Rotary and kind of how I ended up here, but it's just my story, right? Yours is probably different. So, I hope that you'll think about what I share tonight, but think about it in the context of what it means to you and kind of take that to be your inspiration. I always feel a little uncomfortable when people are like, oh, Jenny, you're so inspiring with your story. You have this sad story. It's so inspiring. And really, I don't think that we're inspired by others. I think that we're inspired by the way that others make us feel. And that's what I hope that we can share tonight. And I hope that, kind of thinking about what all this means to you will be the inspiration when you close down your computer at the end of this Zoom call. So people kind of know me as the Rotary Happy lady, right? That's what your district governor saw when he came out to the International Assembly, a couple years ago now. And it's, I talk about this thing called Rotary Happy. Sometimes when I'm traveling, if I'm traveling for work, I always like to try and find a Rotary meeting to go into. And I was actually I was at a Rotary club in South Carolina when I was on vacation. And as I was leaving, they said, it's funny because you look exactly like the lady from those Rotary Happy videos. I said, yeah, it'd be great if you could remember my name, but it's fine. I'm the Rotary Happy girl, it's fine. So Rotary Happy is just my silly, lighthearted way of describing what I would call a meaningful and impactful member experience. Now, the background of how Rotary Happy came about was actually born out of this really hysterical conversation I was having with another Rotarian. So I was a club president, he was a club president, and I was one of those annoying, naively, I'm going to change the world Rotary club presidents like that. I was really at that level. It was obnoxious. You would not have wanted to talk to me because I was over the top energetic. And, you've probably noticed that my baseline level of energy is bouncing, right? That's just me existing in a normal state. So when I get excited about something, I'm really annoying, and I recognize how annoying it is when I get excited. So I'm talking with this Rotary, fellow Rotary president, because I was all about, let's collaborate. We're all one Rotary. Let's work together. So I had this wild idea that for the whole month of November, we could do 30 days of kindness. So 30 projects in 30 days, with the catch that every single project would include representatives from 3 different Rotary clubs. So we would have 3 Rotarians representing 3 different clubs every single day, different Rotarians every day doing a project. And I was like, yeah, sure, we can do this. We'll call it Rotary 30 days of kindness. It's November. Perfect. I'm like, no problem. Let's do it. And he goes, hang on, Jenny. I'm just not as raw Rotary as you. So, I mean, this sounds great, but I don't know that I'm as raw Rotary as you. I'm not sure how this is going to work. And he's a friend of mine. We've actually done a lot of Rotary projects together, but I just kind of responded in my smart alecky way. And I said, I don't really think I'm raw Rotary, like I'm offended. And I said, I'm just really Rotary happy. And as if that were somehow dialed down from raw Rotary. So that's kind of how Rotary happy, it kind of just came this thing that would stuck with me, that they're like, she's Rotary happy, give her a minute, kind of thing. So, but how to get there, and when I think about why Rotary, right? Because I can do good, I can serve the community, and I could do that without being a member of Rotary, right? We all could. So why Rotary? Why does that matter to me? So when I unpack, right, and I say service, right? I joined Rotary for probably the same reason a lot of you did. Someone asked me to, and I said, sure, and joined. But when I really unpack my Rotary story, when I unpack why I believe in this and why it's important to me, I can actually trace it all the way back to when I was just a baby. So as mentioned, when I was being introduced, I entered the child welfare system when I was an infant. I was an abandoned infant. So essentially I was born to people who couldn't or wouldn't raise me for one reason or another. And I entered the Ohio foster care system. So I was placed into a foster home where I grew up. and my first foster parents ended up adopting me. And so the cool thing, or the interesting thing, I suppose, is that my parents, before and after they adopted me, have continued fostering. So they've been foster parents for over 40 years and have fostered hundreds of children. So I have lots and lots of siblings out in the world. But the interesting thing, growing up this way, and growing up in this kind of world, I've seen firsthand, and even personally, I felt it personally, just how much someone's life can change based on the decisions and behavior of someone else. So for me, like right now, I'm in this now, I grew up in this way. I grew up in the way that I grew up, and having the experiences that I grew up in the trauma that I had as a child. And now here I am in this place of privilege, and in this place of ability. And I kind of see it as my responsibility to make good use of those opportunities that I've had along the way, and to kind of keep moving forward towards the kind of world where we all leave those positive impacts on others in our wake. And so for me, Rotary became that opportunity and became that vehicle by which I do that. So I really love our organization because it aligns so much with my life's mission, with the kind of person I want to be, and the kind of work and the kind of impact I want to leave. So my mission in life is to leave people and places a little bit better than when I found them. And simple, right? That's so simple and so naive, probably, and so idyllic. But it's because I can recognize, and I've experienced how much my life has changed based on the decisions that other people have made, and based on the behavior of other people. And so I take it very seriously that, the ways that my decisions and my behavior can impact other people. And I want to, and that's positive and negative, right? I want to leave that impact and leave people, places, things a little bit better than when I found them. And for me, when I found Rotary, I was like, oh my gosh, this is this whole organization across the entire world that exists to do this exact thing that I think is so important. So for me, that's right. That's the drive. That's the energy of why I that's why service, right? If I say service and fellowship is why I'm in Rotary, it's actually a little bit deeper than that. And each of you, if you unpack that a little bit of why does service matter to you? Why do the friendships that you formed in Rotary matter to you? You probably have similar high impact stories to tell, or stories to think about. If you don't want to tell them, not everybody has to tell their story. But Rotary is personal, and it means something different to each of us. And, for me, kind of getting to Rotary Happy, as your district governor knows, because he heard a little bit of my story out at IA, Rotary was not always easy. So when I first joined Rotary, I joined a very energetic morning club, and it seemed great. At first, I love the people. I have lifelong friendships formed out of that. And over time, what was happening, what I kind of realized had been probably happening for a long time, and it had flown under the radar, is that there were all kinds of unwritten rules, right? There were unwritten rules about where you could sit. There were unwritten rules about who was doing more or less work. There were unspoken rules about who was in charge and who was really making the decisions, regardless of who's, held the gavel in the front of the room. And over time, those things became even more bold. And eventually it turned into remarks. It turned into commentary. Particularly as a woman, I didn't feel safe in my Rotary Club. There were comments about women, what we were wearing, getting pulled into email threads about other members and wondering, what did the email threads that were written about me look like? There were very inappropriate jokes, very inappropriate comments being made. Lots of intersections with other parts of the community that were creating kind of these various threats. And it was this incredibly unhealthy, incredibly toxic dynamic within my Rotary Club. And it was not functional, right? It was very dysfunctional. Even though the work was, right, there was still good work happening. There were still good people. And, one of the things that, kind of built over time, I would get physically ill going to a Rotary meeting because I was so nervous. about what would be said, about how it would go down, about how I would be treated, nervous about what I was wearing as I was walking into a Rotary Club meeting, what would be said, and lots of power imbalances and things that just are not healthy, are not safe in a group dynamic, particularly as a woman. I really am being very vulnerable when I tell you I didn't feel safe in that environment. And one thing I learned really quickly was that speaking up about it and raising questions about it made you a target in a really horrible way. And so eventually, right, we kind of went through the channels trying to address this, trying to get our district involved, addressing this. And, long story short, it wasn't salvageable. Like just wasn't going to work. Things weren't going to change enough for me to be able to continue being a member of that club, or even maybe being a member of Rotary. And all those things, right, are not what I signed up for. I didn't sign up for unwritten rules about where to sit. I didn't sign up for this point keeping that happened. I didn't sign up for any of that nonsense. And so when I'm in the middle of this, mind you, you all know what I do for a living. So my husband is looking, saying, gosh, you have a stressful job. Like, why are you inviting this? And why are we doing this? Like, why don't you just quit? And I thought about that a lot. Let's get real here. I thought about walking away a lot, but I couldn't quit Rotary because it had become too important to me. Remember, I told you about why Rotary was so important to me, why that commitment was so important to me. So I couldn't quit Rotary, but you could bet that I could quit that club. And so that's exactly what I did. I walked out one day and said, I'm not coming back, and decided I was never going to go back to that club. And a lot of other people had done the same. So a cool thing happened. So my club met in the mornings for breakfast. And that first week where I would not be going to my Rotary Club, I texted two other women in the club who also had walked away, and said, I've been having breakfast with y'all for a really long time. And I know I'll miss you tomorrow. Why don't we just grab coffee? So we decided we'd just grab coffee in a little coffee shop during that Rotary Club meeting time. Just to, in that first, week, it wasn't the most productive. There was a lot of venting and supporting and, kind of just leaning on each other. But a cool thing happened. The next week, two more people heard that we were going to have coffee, because we're like, oh, let's just keep meeting for coffee. So two more people joined us for coffee. And then the next week, a few more people said, hey, I heard you're meeting for coffee. Can I come? And we said, oh, sure, come on. So by the end of the month, we had nearly 20 people coming and meeting for coffee together. And so we kind of just kept doing it casually. And then we started saying, oh gosh, the senior center needs volunteers to serve lunch. Let's just go do that. We'll go do that as a group. Wouldn't that be fun? Or, hey, we're going to go to this community event together. Wouldn't that be fun? And after about a month or so, and we have a couple dozen people meeting for coffee in this little tiny back room of a coffee shop, we realized we looked like a Rotary Club. We kind of sounded like one. We were kind of acting like one. Maybe we should just be a Rotary Club. And so that's exactly what we did. We chartered just about 2 months later with 20, I think we chartered with 26 members. So we chartered our club, and I had the honor of being our club's second president. And the cool thing, and I think one of the reasons our club has, our club's been profiled a couple times in like Rotary magazine and stuff, and is that year that I got to be our president, I inducted a new member every other week for the entire year. So 27 members that joined. So every other week we kind of inducted a new member, and we're just growing like wildfire. And now our club has about 80 members. And, we, up until the pandemic, had continued to meet in that tiny little back room of that coffee shop, all crammed in. And, a lot of people I think that growth, that rapid growth, 27 members in 1 year, kind of caught a lot of attention. But actually what I'm most proud of is that during that year, right, we ended with nearly 70 members that year. And after that second year, but 100% of those members, all 70 of those members, were engaged in a service project, which is what I'm most proud of, because, right, why do people join and stay in Rotary? So I was most proud that we were not just a club with like impressive numbers. We were a club that was really, really engaged and making a really, really big difference. And so, I challenge all of you to think about the answer, of all the things I just shared with you, right? I just puked out a lot of my little story to you. So I challenge you to think about the answer you gave back in the beginning of why are you a member of Rotary? And then take 2-3 minutes in the next week of your life and just take a couple minutes, grab a cup of coffee, grab a beer, whatever, and just unpack that story a little bit more so that when you say, why are you a member of Rotary, you can really say, why are you a member of Rotary, and really explain that. And a lot of you said service, a lot of you said fellowship or thought about that. Keep those answers, they're true, but dig a little bit deeper. Like, why is service important to you? Why is building friendships important to you? And if you're following along in the nerd way and you have your little piece of paper in front of you, write down those things, right? Why is service important? Why is friendship important? And write those down under the think section of your paper and kind of just make a note to think about those things soon. So now that we've done some thinking, are we okay on time? Are we doing all right? Okay, cool. So now that we've done a little bit of thinking, let's stretch. Now that I've all made you sad with my sad little story, let's do some stretching. So I am not a big fan of Rotarians who do nothing but complain about Rotary, but I'm going to complain about Rotary for a second. For any of you that are part of any of those like Rotary member Facebook groups, like sometimes I'm like, do you even like Rotary? When I like watch those things, watch the comments online, I'm like, dang folks, like you've got some unhappiness in your life. But it doesn't actually just bug me about Rotary. It actually kind of plagues nearly every organization or company that I've ever talked to about like leadership or change management. And, the world has changed, but organizations and agencies like Rotary have really struggled to keep up with and like adapt to this changing world. I'm not saying anything groundbreaking here. You all know this. And for some reason, when people use the term change management, right? I just brought the mood way down when I said change management because it sounds so scary. But I actually really resist using the word change because somehow like the euphemism of that word and like that it's kind of become coded language that we have to be a little bit careful about. And so somewhere inherently we have attached an implied negativity to the word change, right? So if I walk up to you and say, hey, District 7720, let's talk about change. For those of you that have put your, sweat and tears into District 7720, you're going to be saying, hey, change, what have we been doing wrong? Because when I say change, we automatically assume, right? We kind of have this negative assumption that we're doing something wrong. And in Rotary, when we talk about a really big institution with a lot of history and tradition, and let's get honest here, we cling to our traditions like beacons in the storm. And we should, they're important, right? That's what we've been able to build over the last 100 years. Well, not me, I haven't been around that long, but all of, other people have built that over the last 100 years. But it kind of creates this anxiety and creates this negativity. So what I recommend and what I do with the Rotary clubs I support is to approach clubs, approach members, and rather than talking about change, really start talking about stretching. So when I, when I flip the script and I talk about stretching, right? Because when we say change, what you say and what they hear are two different things. So let's talk about stretching instead. So, rather than saying, hey, you need to change, instead say, hey, there's some great stuff that's working really well. Let's add this kind of one extra thing and just see how it goes. Let's just stretch and try this one new thing, one new project, one new campaign, and just see how it goes. And so we're going to do a fun little kind of 3-minute exercise that you can take back to other organizations or clubs or whatever and try it out. And it's actually an improv technique. So we're going to practice having these kind of productive conversations. And here are the rules. When you're having a conversation about stretching, when you're having a conversation about change management, as scary as that is, it's so easy to say, well, yes, but. So if someone came and said, hey, I have this idea, and you go, yeah, that's a good idea, but, and then you go ahead and like provide a dissertation about why it won't work. So in this activity, we are only using yes and. So the only buts that are allowed in this conversation are the ones in your seats. So yes, but is not allowed in this conversation. It's only yes and. So I'm going to give you an example. So let's say I'm in my Rotary Club meeting and I raise my hand, little old me, woohoo Rotary girl, and say, hey, I have an idea. I think that we should lower our dues, right? Like tires screech, music stops. And I say, hey, I think our dues are too expensive. I think people are having trouble paying the dues. People aren't joining because of the dues. Like, can we lower our dues? And how often would that conversation be met with, well, yes, we hear what you're saying, but we can't afford lunch here if we lower our dues. Well, yes, but we can't afford to fund this project that we've done for the last 20 years if we lower our dues. Well, yes, but all of these things. Well, yes, but most people have their company pay their dues anyway, so it doesn't matter. Versus yes and maybe we could look at tiered dues. Maybe we could look at multiple levels of dues or multiple levels of membership types, right? I'm building on the idea rather than shutting it down. So we're going to practice as a group, and you're allowed to say yes and contribute one added idea to my topic. And then we'll kind of go around and you can all kind of build on each other's idea. Don't worry, I'm not going to use a really scary example like dues. We're going to keep it light here. I'm not going to, we're not going to do anything wild here. So I'm going to be the little Rotary member who raises their hand with an idea, and I'm going to rely on all of you to contribute to the idea using yes and. So here's my idea. Hey, Rotary Club, I think that our club should participate in the local parade. Who wants to add something? I think we should walk in the parade. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. And we can add some other Rotary clubs to help as well.
Great collaboration. All right. Who wants to build on that? Yes, and.
Yes, and I have a trailer that we can use for the float.
Awesome.
Yes, and can you tell me how it would look like?
Awesome. Cool. Right. Perfect. Anyone else want to build on that idea? Cool. So we've built on it. We've talked about, yes, these are opportunities for collaboration. Yes, this is a great public image right? We could build on this so much. Now, I don't know about all of you, if any of your clubs have participated in a parade, but sometimes this conversation might go, well, yes, but the last time we did that, no one showed up. Well, yes, but the last time we did that, no one helped with the float. Well, yes, but the last time we did that, it rained. Well, yes, but the last time we did that, a herd of llamas came through and disrupted the parade, right? There's all these things that could go wrong with this parade. So good job. We're gonna do one more. Not that I think you need the extra practice, y'all are rock stars. So, hey, I'm the little Rotary member raising my hand and say, hey, I think we should do a project that addresses hunger in our region. Who wants to yes and that one?
Yes, and we can add it to what we're doing for Meals on Wheels and help our local food bank.
Perfect. Yes, and who else?
Is there a certain day that we can participate with the food bank to make deliveries or something?
Yes, and there's opportunities for collaboration to support work. Awesome. Who else?
Yes, and you can expound further for me so that I can have a clearer vision again. I mean, tell me a little bit about your goals and why.
Perfect. Yeah, you're inspiring the person with the idea to step into leadership and to share a little bit more. Perfect.
Cool.
Awesome. So, and again, right, there's all these ways to have, kind of to eliminate creativity in these conversations when we don't use kind of that yes and technique. And now I know that I was kind of giving you silly examples, and if you do yes and over and over and over, it's going to get kind of silly. But what I want you to remember is that frame of mind, that lens that you're looking through. And that's the great way to have these conversations. And this is an improv technique that, you can Google and learn more about it. And it was just meant to be silly, but really to kind of help get you into the habit of stretching a little bit beyond your comfort zone. And when we do that, it fosters creativity and it fosters collaboration. And I say this all the time to my staff and to my team at work, but I say, we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what other people know. So when we start every conversation, we'll saying, well, yes, but we tried that 5 years ago and it didn't really work out. To a new member, right? You have just like squashed their light. So really taking the time to go through the exercise of these meaningful conversations that build. And, think about all the other ideas and motivation and energy and collaboration that you cultivate along the way when you approach conversations through this lens of stretching and growing and building. And so what I'd like you to do in the middle column of your paper, if you're following along like a nerd like me, write down one opportunity in your Rotary realm, whatever that role is that you serve. But write down one opportunity for stretching. So one opportunity of one thing that you could try differently, one thing you have always thought about trying but haven't really gotten around to, one thing you could think about differently, one conversation that you could approach differently, and just write that down. You don't have to tell me what it is. And it could be at a personal level, a club level, a project level, district level, whatever. All right. So now our last task here is that we're going to plan. So think about that person that you mentioned that you've never talked to about Rotary before. And so then, try to envision yourself talking to them about Rotary. Like, how would it go down? How would you describe it? I mentioned earlier about our Each One Bring One campaign. We actually have a great tool on there called Sharing Your Rotary Experience. That is a club meeting activity that helps you kind of share your experience. So that's a great tool if you want to really nerd out on this stuff. But can you envision yourself kind of talking to them? Why or why not? What would you tell them about? Would you just say, hey, come to Rotary? A lot of people sit around and have lunch and talk about stuff. It'd be great. Come join us. You could do it that way. Or you could say, my Rotary Club is working on this project right now where we're making blankets for children in foster care. And I know how much you really support children's causes. We're getting together at a local brewery. We're going to have a couple beers. We're going to make up these blankets and then we're going to ship them off. It sounds like it's your jam. Why don't you come and join us? Beers on me. Right? That's a very different ask because I'm inviting someone to experience Rotary and making it really personal for them. And I'm talking to them about something that I'm also excited about, right? I'm excited to make these blankets. And I say this a lot, but I just don't think that I don't think we ask people to join a club. Like, really, that's not what we're doing. We're inviting them to experience Rotary with us. And the reason that this is the third part of our conversation tonight and not the first is that I don't think we can really talk to others with any kind of authenticity if we haven't worked out what our organization means to us. So if you can't identify why you give a crap about Rotary, I don't really know how you can have an authentic conversation with someone else about getting involved with us. And so any one of us on this call tonight, I guarantee you can all probably recite the vision statement of Rotary. You can probably recite the 4-way test if I asked you to. You could tell me the object of Rotary. You could tell me all the 7 areas of focus. Like, right? You all could do that. That's awesome. We should all keep being awesome and doing and knowing those things. But have you really thought with like any kind of intention or any kind of boldness, what it means for you to be a member of Rotary, right? So hopefully through our earlier conversations, you've kind of thought about that a little bit deeper, a little bit more, and continue to do that work, please. I challenge you to, because that's what makes Rotary interesting to others that are not a part of our organization yet. Because, we shouldn't just be inviting people to join us so that we have these like impressive year-end numbers up on the board to make our district governors look good. Like, that's not why we need to invite people to join Rotary. I'm sorry, but it's true. Right? That's not why we're saying, hey, join Rotary, right? That's not why we need to grow Rotary, right? We need and have to grow Rotary because that's how we expand our capacity for good. That's how we have the capacity to do the good work. And if I remember, we all joined Rotary and stayed in Rotary because of the good we could do together. So we really need more people to be able to do that. And so I have one final little story to share with you. And, I think This focus on the member experience and how we experience Rotary is one of our best assets for growing. And I'm going to tell you this little story. So it's been about a year and a half ago. I purchased, you're going to think this is really random, but I promise I have a point. But about a year and a half ago, I purchased an electric water kettle. So before that, again, I know you're all thinking, where's she going with this? But so before I had this kettle, I just heated water. If I wanted to have like a cup of tea, I would just heat water on my stove, like in a pot, like a monster. And I would just fill up the pot in the sink and I would put it on the stove. I'd wait, and then I'd pour it into my teacup and spill it all over my countertop. Like just like a monster. I didn't know how to live. I was completely uncivilized. And so I purchased this kettle. I researched it. I wanted to get a good one. And from a sustainable company, an ethical company, all that business. So I purchased this kettle. And friends, it has become the answer to every kitchen problem I never knew I had. I use it every single day. My husband uses it every day. My kids use it every day. I even started drinking a different type of coffee because I had this kettle now. It has revolutionized my life. It's actually right here. I actually brought it here because I wanted to show it to you. It's red, it's shiny, which is a definite bonus. It's beautiful. It's amazing. So here's the thing. Within 1 week of owning this kettle, I had bought a second one so that I could take it to my office because I knew I wanted my coworkers to also have access to such an amazing kettle. I have purchased at least 4 or 5 of them as gifts to other people. It's my go-to wedding gift now. So if any of you invite me to a wedding, you're getting this kettle. I don't care if you already have a kettle or you already have 10 kettles. I'm going to get you this kettle because it's amazing. And it's wonderful. I've recommended it to people. Like if someone came up to me and said, hey, I'm going to go to the coffee shop. I'm like, speaking of coffee shops, let me tell you about this kettle that I got. And I'm going to go on to tell them where to buy it and all these things. It's amazing, right? It's been a wonderful addition to our kitchen. Now, if I talk this much about a red shiny kettle, can you imagine how much I must talk about Rotary? After all I told you about how important Rotary is to me, can you imagine how much I talk about Rotary if I talk that much and I get that excited about this silly little kettle? Now, why am I doing this? Why am I telling people about this kettle? It is not because the company has paid me to. I am not a spokesperson for this tea kettle company. Like that's not what's happening. I don't get it. I don't get anything back. There's no gimmick here, right? There's nothing. I have no advantage to tell people about it. So why am I doing it? Why do I do that? I do it because as human beings, and here's the nerd part of me. Y'all heard I'm a trauma specialist, so I'm like a brain geek. Now, when we observe someone we care about experiencing happiness, we in turn, when we observe them being happy, we in turn experience the release of these helpful kind of brain chemicals. They're called neurotransmitters in our brain, and it's called dopamine and serotonin. They help us feel pleasure and joy. So when we witness someone we care about being happy or being fulfilled or having a positive experience, we get this little brain boost with these chemicals in our brain that help us feel pleasure and joy. So we kind of crave it, right? Think about the last time that you read a really good book, right? And anybody read a good book recently? Did you recommend that book to someone else? Did you say, oh, hey, Rocky, you should read this book. Here, borrow my copy. Think about the last time you got takeout somewhere, you went to a new restaurant. And you maybe called up Henry and said, hey, you got to go to this restaurant. You got to get the calamari. It's amazing. Why are you doing that? Did the restaurant say, hey, you'll get 2 for 1 appetizers every time you get Henry to buy the calamari? Like, no, you're doing it because you're invested in their happiness. You're invested in the happiness and joy of other people. Now, sometimes we call that pride, right? Think about if you have children or grandchildren or nieces or nephews, how excited you get when you see them take their first steps or like when they do something cool, right? Like you're not the one walking. Why are you so damn excited about it? It's because we're proud. We're experiencing this happiness through them. And we're getting this recharge, this brain boost recharge through these releases of dopamine and serotonin. We crave it. We crave that biological feedback. And so again, if I talk this much about a kettle and recommend this much about a kettle, and I've told you how important Rotary is to me and how much it means to me and how much I love my experience in Rotary and, the club that I've been a part of building, imagine how much I talk about that, right? We're invested in the happiness of the people around us. And the way that we behave, the way that we act, the way that we talk has an impact, like positive, negative, intentional, or unintentional, on the people around us. And so I'm not saying that we should treat Rotary or Rotaryship membership growth like a kettle. Like, I'm not saying that we should apply some sales tactic to Rotary, but instead, let's take what we know about human behavior and apply that to the way that we want to grow Rotary. So people ask me all the time, how'd you get your Rotary Club to grow so much? What recruitment techniques did you use? And I said, well, really nothing, because, I don't think gimmicks are going to be what gets people attracted to Rotary. It's people enjoying their Rotary experience and being fulfilled by it that is really attractive. So when we have these kind of Rotary happy people that are really engaged and really fulfilled, that is very attractive. It's enticing, right, to other people to want to be a part of that. And I think that's what, when I'm talking to Rotary clubs or talking really with any organization, I think that's what you should be focusing a lot of energy on. I'm a super nerd, so I love to look at data. If you give me a chart and a color-coded spreadsheet, I'm happy for days. So absolutely 100% use the numbers as a guide, analyze them, learn from them, plan from them, but really putting that energy into that experience and that member engagement piece. So for our final little section on planning, your homework is to make a plan for how you will share your Rotary Happy, if you want to call it your Rotary Happy experience or your Rotary story. But I challenge you within 2 days of me signing off on this meeting that you will connect to someone and talk to them about what makes you Rotary happy. So that person you identify that you've never talked to about Rotary, I challenge you to make a point to talk to them or someone else about Rotary, what Rotary means to you, and invite them to be a part of it. I also challenge all of you to make a plan to connect with others in your organization and maybe making sure that they're getting the most out of their experience too, right? Several of you joined and stayed in Rotary because of the people, right? The people, the friendships. And I think we collectively, we're, kind of responsible for our own Rotary Happy and our own engagement. But I think we also have a responsibility to the people to the left and the right of us, right? Of what's their experience like and how can we support them along on this. And so I'm going to shut up now, and I'd love to hear all of your questions or thoughts or reactions, or feel free to tell me I'm wrong and I'm way out there and I need to get a handle on it. But I hope that we can all work, collectively, both as individuals and as a unit to make sure that we all find our Rotary happy, because we deserve it. Rotary certainly deserves it. But more importantly than that, the communities that we serve and the people that we help deserve for us to be that engaged. And, so shout it from the rooftops. Feel free to be Rotary happy or rah Rotary or whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to stop talking now. I already said that once and then I kept talking, but I'm going to stop talking for real now. And certainly thanks for letting me take up the last 50 minutes of your time.
I certainly appreciate being here tonight, and your message is spot on. We have one of our folks here. Henry is an incoming club president of my home club, Washington Noon. What advice would you have for Henry as a new club president?
Oh gosh. First of all, congratulations, Henry. I always say when people say, oh, I missed a meeting, I have to be Rotary president, or, they say something like that. And I always take on the personal responsibility of correcting such statements. And I say instead, well, you get to be the president of your club and you get to lead your community in this way. So first of all, congratulations. And, I think, again, focusing on keeping members engaged. And when you do that, it also it kind of creates this upcycling of leadership within an organization. When you're kind of engaging across multiple levels, then it creates this breeding ground for your future leaders. So I think that's important to be cultivating. And one of my favorite things that I did as a president, mostly because I didn't know what the heck I was supposed to be doing, so I was trying to learn as I went. I've also felt like that being the district membership chair. I was like, I've been doing it for almost 2 years now, and I think I've almost figured out what my actual job is. So by the time I'm done, by the time my term is over, I will have nearly figured it out. But I actually met with every single member of the club, current and new. I mean, not for any kind of official reason, but just I'd grab a beer, grab a coffee, whatever, grab lunch. Because in my mind, I was like, I'm already grabbing lunch anyways. I might as well grab it with a cool person who's a member of Rotary. Just to talk to them about why they were in Rotary, why they cared, why they joined. And I use that as a tool to kind of make smart connections for them. And one example is we had a person who worked at a bank that joined Rotary, and she really wanted to get involved with Habitat for Humanity. She wanted to do a house build, and her employer really wasn't interested in supporting. They just didn't have the manpower to support that and make that happen. And that's kind of actually what navigated her to Rotary. And so at first, when she said, I joined Rotary because I want to help the community, if we'd left it at that, we would have missed the opportunity, because what really ignited her was she wanted to do a house build. That's what really kind of she found Rotary for. So she told me that, and I said, oh, friends, we're going to make this happen. And so about 6 weeks later, we did a house build. So about 6 weeks later, we had about 85 members and Rotarians, community members show up, and we built a house in a weekend. And, that would have never happened if she had not just been kind of asked the question of, well, service, yeah, sure, right. But that's why we all walked in the door. But what specifically about it? And so, I just said, hey, you got to meet our service chair, and, we can make this happen. Like, we're a group of doers, so we can make this happen. But just little things like that came out of those real, came over, having that beer, having that coffee or having that lunch or whatever. And that was actually my favorite kind of memory of being a Rotary president.
Thank you, Jenny. Anybody else with questions?
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to share a little bit. I've only been a Rotarian, it'll be 3 years and 4 years in November. I moved here. I'm from Michigan, and I didn't know anybody in the room. And it was, you know what, it's very, our club, Spencer, is a little bit intimidating. We've got a lot of people who've been there for a long time, and they sit at the same places all the time. They never want. They're just like this, and and our club, we've got some great members, but it pretty much runs itself. I mean, it's
really does.
But very inspiring, Spencer, to be around your Sunrise Club that we sponsored, the Satellite Club, and they have a lot more fun than we do.
Yeah,
I mean,
got some energy there.
It's a group of only 20 people, and we've got a lot of people that are long in tooth, which I am too. I'm 71, but I think sometimes they come here just out of habit, but they've even lost the idea of why they come. It's like they just come because it's Monday, and we go to lunch. So what I've done, and I've really tried to do, is I made an effort to try to know everybody in the club, and even when I walk in the room, I go by every table and say hi to each one individually, and I truly want to know a little bit about their background, and their I don't think we invest enough as people on a one-to-one basis. Mm-hmm. And one of the challenges that I want to create is to actually ask people that there are members in the club that you don't know, and at the next meeting, let's just kind of switch the tables around and sit with people that you don't know, and it'll all take care of itself. Building teamwork is all about a collaboration, but it's also about embracing each other out of respect. And the nice thing about Rotary, you don't politically it doesn't matter, but because we all have a common cause and we want to make things better. And I'm very inspired by the goals of Rotary. I'm a little bit overwhelmed by some of the mechanisms. There's a lot of stuff, okay, and that gets in the way, I think. But the greatest things you have to do is you just have to connect with people on a one-to-one basis. That's the biggest goal that I want to do is, and the number one thing I want to do is to have our club this year. I want to have fun. I want to have fun. We want to get together and try to every 6 weeks or so. I mean, we have our club meetings that people scatter, and and there's a lot of older folks there. They don't need to scatter. They can stick around and talk. And so I want to have some social events where, if you want to come, you come. If you don't, you don't have to. But I think if we get in that habit, downtown Washington, there's a lot of exciting things going on. There's a lot more venues for food and beverage. And I want to concentrate on having trust, respect, but most of all, fun. Thank you.
You'll make it happen. You'll make it happen.
And I just want to say, Jenny, my daughter went to Ohio University, so I'm very familiar with it. And it's I love that city, and that's a beautiful school.
Yeah, it's funny, all the connections, like the Bobcat connections that I found over the years. So a lot of people are connected to the university.
Well, Jenny, thank you so much for your time, taking time out of your busy schedule. Is there anything we in North Carolina can do for you?
Keep on being awesome. Oh, Stan, did you have something to add?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I want the model and name of your electric water pot.
It's called Hayden. And yeah, you can Google it. And this one is like the vintage look of it, which fits with my kitchen. So that's it, but I would be happy to send you a link if you shoot me up.
I think I can find it.
It's a great analogy, Jenny. It really is. And that was a great time. I can't wait to share this with all the clubs. And please feel welcome. If you're down in North Carolina, please look us up. We're in the eastern part of the state, and we'd love to have you come visit anytime.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'll probably take you up on that. Anytime I can get over towards the coast is good for me. So
please do. And we get, we're used to kids, so bring them along.
Awesome. Yeah. My kids are, Rotary pros at this point. My youngest can spot a Rotary wheel out in the community like nobody's business. And Spencer, I have to send you a video of my son. My kids are 13 and 9. And my 9-year-old, he's like the unofficial chair of fun in our Rotary district. He has a badge and everything. He's like he's like works the desk at district conferences. He's like welcoming people and signing them in. But I asked him, he did a video. I was doing like a women in Rotary thing with with Rotary International. And he did a video about what is Rotary. And he goes, well, it's this thing that my family's in. And, because